are we? There we are. I think they only got part of that. But anyway, it's all good. I'll learn how to do all this stuff later. Hey, everybody, it's Clarissa. We are back in the limelight. As usual, every 2 weeks, we have our good friends from Domestic Shelters back on the show. We do that for a very specific reason, because we do really think that the message is very important to keep getting it out so that people know where to get help if they do need it. Today, we're going to be talking about what is and what isn't abuse, and what does escalation mean, and what does that look like? So I think it's really important for most people to know, because a lot of people have different ideas. Well, what is abuse and what isn't abuse? Well, it might not seem abusive to me, but it could be abusive to someone else. And so let's get that just out of the way. Let's clear that up a little bit. So Amanda Rumschlag is the VP of Digital Services over at DomesticSheltors.org. By the way, corporate headquarters are right here in Phoenix, Arizona, but there are 2,800, almost 3,000, I think, at this point, right? Shelters all over the United States, and again, in a part in Canada. So the numbers are growing. That's really great. A lot of people are out there ready and willing to help, and that always is a good thing to know. And then we've got Amanda Kippert, and she is the editorial director at DomesticShelters.org. Ladies, as usual, always really great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. So what it's hard to admit sometimes, like what's happening with the partner, and when we talk about abuse. So how does this denial trap survivors that might be in a dangerous position?
Sure, I can take that. So denial is a very real and very common barrier to leaving abuse, because it's really hard to admit when you are with somebody that you once loved and trusted that they are abusive. A lot of people want to believe that, and rightly so, that whatever happened was just a one-time thing and it's not going to happen again. But what actually happens is a pattern. Some people call it a cycle of abuse, where you see the same behavior over and over. There might be periods where there is no abuse, periods where things are fantastic, where it seems idyllic, and then it goes back to control, power, threats, violence. When people deny that abuse is occurring, they tend to stay longer with that partner, and that puts them at greater risk. The longer you're with a partner, the more abuse can escalate. And what we have found, what researchers have found, what advocates have found, is that abuse almost always escalates. It very rarely just fades away or levels off. It usually always gets more and more and more.
Right.
Or what's that?
Or was a one-time thing.
Right. It's rarely a one-time thing. I mean, people have arguments. People, in a normal relationship, you can argue and you can have a fight. But what's different about that is, a sense of care and concern after that happens. I'm so sorry, let's talk about it, that kind of thing. Whereas an abuser is not going to often admit that what happened was wrong, or that they were in the wrong, or that they hurt you. What they're going to try to do is convince you that it was either in your mind, you made it up, it's bigger, it wasn't as big as you thought it was, that kind of thing. So those are kind of the red flags you have to look for to admit to yourself that what's happening is wrong.
Actually, we normally think of abuse as being something physical. That's really normally where that's the default, the go-to. And that is not always the case. We know definitely that abuse is many other things. But even if abuse isn't physically violent, can that still escalate?
Yeah, possibly. Verbal, mental, financial, and other types of abuse are typically precursors to physical violence. So one of the most dangerous things for a survivor to do is really underestimate what their abuser is capable of. So it's really important to, kind of what Amanda said, just having that reality check and that gut check of, what am I experiencing? And is this aligning with what the experts are saying could lead to further abuse?
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh man. Okay. I mean, and again, let me just ask the questions and then I'll give my commentary. So then, you know how I go off on a tangent, ladies, and know how you got to stop me sometimes. But so many abusers mistakenly believe that abuse can be a one-off, as we said before, and that it won't happen again. And he'll get better, and women constantly are wanting to kind of cover up and make excuses and make light of a matter that really is not. Why is that never true, Amanda? Why is it never the one-off?
Right. Well, I mean, like I said, there are one-off incidents where people have, in a normal, healthy relationship, have an argument. can even shout at each other, call each other a name. That can happen. And it can be normal as long as both parties come back together and can talk about it and feel safe in the relationship.
Right.
The thing with abuse is that it's not a one-off incident, because an abuser is actually planning from the get-go what they're doing with that victim. A lot of people think that abuse is really like an impulsive act, but what we found is that abuse is very planned out, and abusers know what they're doing from the moment they meet a potential victim, possibly even before they meet a potential victim. They know who they're looking for. They're looking for someone who's vulnerable to that kind of control and grooming. And so even if you try to write it off, even if you try to, like some survivors will say they're going to keep the peace, that's not what abusers are looking for. They're not looking for peace. They're looking for control. So it's not going to work if you're with an abuser.
Yeah. So Ashley, escalating to potentially a lethal level, God forbid, right? It's the last thing we want to know about. It's the last thing we want to hear. And unfortunately, we hear so much about it. So I think that women really need to be putting a little bit more emphasis on what exactly could happen should it continue to happen, right? Even if it happens once or twice and they want to hide under a rock and say it's never going to happen again, it does. When is it that it does? What are the signs that it could potentially become a lethal situation?
Yeah, and I think it's really important that people understand these signs, because it certainly isn't always the case, but very, very commonly, if the abuser feels as though they're losing control of the situation or control of their partner. So whether that be, one partner asking for a divorce, or just kind of leaving kind of some vague hints that maybe they might be leaving. So if that control is being broken, that's, an indicator that it could become potentially lethal. Also, if the abuser has access to a weapon, that increases someone's chance, the person who's being abused, chances of being killed by 500%. So very important to know if they have access to a weapon, that is a very, very dangerous situation.
Right.
Also, extreme jealousy or stalking. This could be in conjunction with violation of a protection order. Just know that those are signs that things are escalating and they could become lethal. Another one, abuse in a public place. If they're so bold and brazen to, abuse this person in front of other people, what's to say that, they're not going to do even worse things behind closed doors? So there's a lot of different, ways to look at this, and things that can kind of should raise people's suspicion that, things aren't getting better, and that, they really need to, take steps to become safe.
Yeah. So what does escalation actually look like? And does it happen right away? Is it something that happens over time? Is it, because I'm imagining a fight and it just gets out of hand and the anger just keeps escalating in the moment, right? There's an individual something happening, a fight. Is that not always the case?
No, not always. It can look like that for sure. It can look like a fight that, usually you have a certain fighting style kind of with your partner, and then all of a sudden, they raise a hand to you or something like that. That's kind of like a sudden escalation where violence comes out of seemingly nowhere. And that's kind of a more black and white, okay, things just got serious kind of escalation. And then there can also be a gradual escalation, which is almost more sinister because it's harder to recognize and it's harder to admit to. And that can look like just an increase in control. So for instance, if an abuser is typically like, hey, where are you going, today, let me know. And then they go from that to, and who else is going to be there? Yeah. And will you see that person? How long are you going to spend with them? Text me as soon as you're done. And it gets a little bit more where, I think it's so important for every survivor to listen to their gut, every woman in general, to listen to their gut, since women are the majority of survivors of abuse. Right. If it feels off, like, why are they asking these questions? Then it probably is off. So
how do we know it's just not regular concern?
Right. Well, again, if it doesn't feel like regular concern, if it's not backed up with love, like, if your partner is showing other signs that go along with that don't show necessary concern, but control, then you know that all these things are adding up to an escalation of abusive powers, you know? So if they're just constantly like, you know, where were you? Who are you with? What are you doing? Don't be with that person. I don't want you to be with that person. And then it goes to the stereotypical, like, why are you wearing that? I don't want you to wear that. Here's what you're going to wear. You know, I don't like how you did that. You're going to do it this way. You know, it's those things kind of adding on to each other that should send a signal to you that, you know, this is control, plain and simple.
Yeah, it feels more control and concern. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally get that. Yeah. Okay. So Ashley, how do you know when abuse has already escalated? How do you know? I mean, it's not always a raised voice. It's not always he's hitting me. So if that's not happening, what is that escalation, and why should I want to get away from that if it's not physical?
Yeah, I think it's tying back to that you know, presence of control, where you just don't feel like you have control over your day-to-day actions. You know, you feel on edge. I mean, if you don't want to go home or you do not want to be around your partner, that, you know, it should be a good sign to kind of start to break it down and you know, read some articles on DomesticSheltors.org about what abuse looks like, and to really kind of start to peel back the layers of what the situation you're in, because, you know, as Amanda said, it can be very gradual, and it's just almost like, you know, you're in a situation where it's so gradual you don't even notice it. So, you know, I've heard some techniques of just writing things down when they happen and then looking back and kind of adding them up, because it can be kind of hard once things have been slowly happening to really recognize what's happening.
Right. So ladies, how can our listeners support you and the shelters? What are some of the things they might be able to do?
Yeah, I'll jump in here with obviously one of our main things that we have is our wish list program. If someone wants to support a domestic violence program or shelter in their area, they can go to DomesticSheltors.org and search through our wish lists. And what that does is it allows you to send the urgently needed items that they need, like toilet paper or detergent or bleach or anything that they need to you know, help survivors. You can send those items right through our website, just a couple of clicks, check out and go from there. But there's a lot of different ways that you can support DomesticSheltors.org, either with a simple cash donation or by becoming a change maker, which allows you to, every purchase you make, you know, the change rounds up and you can donate that directly to us. If you go to our donate page, you'll see a lot of really easy options that make a really big impact.
It's extraordinary. I know that Amazon setup makes it so easy for anybody to donate anywhere. It's really an extraordinary thing. I think I saw something on the newsletter, which, by the way, I would suggest that everybody signs up for. It is certainly a way to stay in the loop, especially for someone that is being abused or someone that knows someone that's being abused, because the more information you have, the more you educate yourself about the possibilities of getting up, moving on, and never looking back. I think DomesticSheltors.org is certainly the place you want to be getting your information from. I wholeheartedly, as you well know, support them. But and again, even the articles are, there's nothing that you cannot find. There's no answer you can't get on DomesticSheltors.org. I thought I saw something about maybe helping or being there, because, you know, we talk about women a lot, but certainly the children many times are in the shelters as well, and sometimes pets. So I think I saw an article on the newsletter about starting to think about donating some gifts for the holidays.
Yeah, I mean, we're working on our gift guide, actually. It's maybe a good time to call that out. I know Amanda's working on that right now, but we're working on ways that people can support domestic violence causes through their holiday giving. So you'll look for that to drop. When does that come out typically, Amanda?
Usually at the end of November.
End of November. Yeah.
So that's the best way to find out about that, apart from you're everywhere on social. So there's no place that you can't go and look for DomesticSheltors.org on social, but certainly DomesticSheltors.org website. It's got everything you need. And what I love over there is not only is there's a phone number that somebody is always on the other end of if you should need help imminently, immediately, or even before that.
Yeah, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is a great resource, and we always refer them if someone wants to get on the phone and talk to someone specific, or they can search for their local hotline as well if they want to talk to the person that's right around the corner from them.
Which is another way to talk about escalation too. If you are in a relationship with someone and what you're experiencing sounds like something we talked about today that sounds like escalation, but you're not sure, you can call a hotline. It's not just, to inquire about shelter, but you can say like, this is happening. Does this sound like abuse to you? And you'll get, an expert opinion and an impartial opinion that can tell you, that sounds dangerous. How do you feel about that? That kind of thing.
And maybe that first phone call is the beginning of your future. It could be the beginning of your exit strategy, your plan. As many times we talked about, ladies, right, in the past, there's a plan and you can implement it and put it in place so that you can get out. You can get out safely and you can get out basically with, as I've understood it, with pretty much, look, the move is always going to be a difficult decision to make, but we're not here to sugarcoat it. But we are here to help you get away from the abuse and help you start all over again. Women do it all the time, and I really take my hat off to them because, as we know, not the easiest thing to do, but not impossible either. So, anything to add?
No, leaving is notoriously the most dangerous time, so a survivor should be aware of that. But the danger level is cut down if you take a moment to safety plan with an expert, an advocate, something like that, rather than just sort of impulsively leaving, because it can put you in a lot of danger. So there are certain things that you can have in place that can help to keep you safe, especially if you have children.
Yeah, exactly, especially with the children. Another reason why we like to come, every couple of weeks, like we do with Amanda and Ashley, is because it is COVID time, and it has been lockdown time, and it has been quarantine time, and it has been staying at home for the most part, staying at home with your abuser. So we like to come out to you as much as we possibly can. And again, this might not be directly for you. This might be directly for somebody that's being abused, and how you can help them. And even for you, there's information over at DomesticSheltors.org. Get on over there and see how you might be able to help somebody that may not really be helping themselves a lot right now. Give them the information. Let them get over to DomesticSheltors.org and start their research. Ladies, is there anything I forgot to say? Anything you'd like to
I just want to mention next month is a big month for domestic violence because it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So keep an eye out. If you're not already subscribed to our newsletter, please just go to the website and sign up, and you'll get one of the first emails we're going to send out on Tuesday is going to have a list of things that you can do to bring awareness to domestic violence throughout the month, things that, actionable things that you can do. So we'll send that out on Tuesday, but we're looking forward to, really just the heightened awareness that comes with Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amanda.
I second all of that. And if you want to help eradicate domestic violence, I think one of the most important things you can do is register to vote and make sure you get out and vote on November 4th, because that might be the most important thing that you can do this year.
Absolutely. All right, ladies, I think we covered it all for this week. We know that we'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. We will be here same time, same place, with yet more messaging and more important news. Anything else before I say goodbye?
That's all for me. Thank you
so much.
All right. Thanks for joining in, everybody. We'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for watching this episode of In the Limelight TV, intelligent media for the savvy entrepreneur. Please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel on YouTube, and you can listen to the podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and Inspired News Radio. Go ahead over to inthelimelightmedia.com to read our digital magazine, and don't forget to connect with me on social pretty much anywhere. Stay well until we meet again in the Limelight.